All right, welcome everybody to episode 5, I believe, of Dual Universe Explorers. Um, Bit of a slow week, not as exciting as last week, admittedly. However, we still have a lot of information to cover this week. Some stuff that kind of seemed like a rehash of previous information, but new information nonetheless. Um, and I am your host, Yamamushi. This is Dual Universe Explorers. We're a group of players and community organizers from the Dual Universe forums. I believe that's where most of us originally met. And we come together every week, every Saturday night, just to sit around and talk about Dual Universe. We talk about what we like about the game, what we like about the forums, our thoughts for the game. Things have clearly progressed over the last couple of weeks from what we originally came into assuming the game was like to just kind of tearing apart the information as we find it and just seeing what that means for the game as a whole. Anyways, I want to remind everybody that the opinions expressed in this show are solely our own, and we are not affiliated with NovaCorp. We're not employees of NovaCorp. We don't communicate with NovaCorp. We just come together just to do this as a fan-based project. And with that, I will go ahead and introduce the, I suppose, stars of the show and some new guests, perhaps maybe even permanent guests. So, hey guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Guess I'll go ahead and go first. My name's Cybrex. I've been a part of the Dual Universe community for, I guess, almost a year now, actually. Yeah, it's been almost a year. I've been just following just like everybody else has, just picking apart all the information we can get, and really happy to be here and talk about it.
Hi everybody, it's Neapolitan here, and the forums depressed me, but I still love everyone in the community.
I'm Wardian. I'm the resident space wizard.
I'm Darius Sanguinanatus, leader and founder of the Terran Union.
I am Captain Twerk Motor, and I am an actual wizard.
Don't steal my thunder.
I'm Mega Triple D, and I'm just another part of the E3 trailer hype train person, and I just happened to join these fellows, and I hope to stick around.
Yeah. So, who's new this week? I think we got Captain Twerk Motor, Cybrex, Megad, and some, I guess, recurrent hosts are not here tonight. That would be Scruggs and Xander. And who else am I forgetting? Mastered Red. I believe he was taking a nap, and he has not awoken from his nap, so he may yet join us later.
He's just dreaming about Dual Universe. It's cool.
Yeah, so how have you guys been this week? Any cool stories? I haven't really kept up with the forums. What's going on there?
Well, shall I go first?
Sure.
Well, I got my hands on the Unigine 2 SDK files, and I had some pretty good revelations.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What sort of revelations are you talking about?
The suspense is killing me.
Well, basically, the whole thing about the Unigine and how it operates on the telemetric or geometric functions it has, and how it can work perfectly with the developers' new server tech.
I see. And were you explaining that might have something to do with targeting? Just hypothesizing on it?
Well, that part is speculation at this point. Basically,
Sorry, go ahead.
Basically, at this point, the targeting system is based on cone of fire and lock-on. It's a tab targeting system, not at any point an FPS simulation.
Yeah, yes, that's great. That's great theory there.
What he was talking about before that, though, was kind of like Yamamushi brought up that one patent that J.C. Bale, I have no idea how to pronounce his last name.
Bile.
Bale. I'll go with that.
Bailey.
Well, just call him JC. So Yamamushi had brought up on the last round table that JC has this particular patent, and I saw it as a way of, for robotics and sharing information. Captain Twerk pointed out a way that it could be used actually in game, so that was kind of interesting for me to see.
Well, basically, the server tech is an upgrade, should I say, on the EU way of handling multiple players at the same time. Basically, the more people congregate in an area, the server clusters that area of the server, basically slowing down how many information the players don't need and isolating them in a relativistic emulation system.
So basically, what's farther from you will update less frequently for you.
Exactly how J.C. Bail explained it on the XP Gamer interview.
Right, that's what he put up on the dev blog, but now we have we know the technical specifications of how it's being done.
It's really complicated to explain it in words because I don't think many people know the terminology at all. So basically the way it handles things is that you can split the server into multiple lesser server blades. So when the players congregate in an area, it can redirect all that information to a super server processor in a way.
Well, there's that. By the way, you've totally spoiled yourself for me, Captain, because I was fully expecting you to sound like Peter Baelish.
I know, it's a totally disappointing thing to hear me speak.
I love it. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
It goes back to an old post. He used to sign all his posts with this Peter Baelish gif, and so every time I read one of Captain Twerk Motor's posts, I read it with the voice of Peter Baelish going off in my head.
Nobody can pull that brogue, bro. Nobody.
You gotta bring that picture back.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree. I would like to see that signature come back.
Surprisingly, many people PM me to put that signature back on.
For anybody that is listening to this podcast who doesn't read the forums, which I would argue, I don't think there's anybody who listens to this show on YouTube and doesn't read the forums, but Twerk is a resident celebrity here, I guess.
The correct terminology is troll, but whatever.
Everybody hates him. Everybody.
It's a love-hate.
You know, love and hate is like a circle. Once you go so far, you just start coming back into love.
I've mentioned it before. He's like Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. He's a necessary evil.
Yes, he is our guard troll.
Yeah.
I love it.
And please, for all guys that are coming into the forum right now, please just ask for the payment system to change. Please, I beg you.
No.
Oh boy. Let's not open that door.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I haven't heard enough about how the payment system works. I mean,
Pay to play.
Yeah, pay to play.
I have a suggestion.
Is that what they're going
for that.
with?
Yeah, I have a suggestion for that particular thread, that we should kill it and kill it with fire.
I think it should be
It's-
locked.
I've tried to contact the moderators to accomplish that, but I've been getting radio silence since, so I don't know.
I think it would be good to have one sticky locked thread with Nizeltar explaining it, and then just locked and delete all new threads about it.
At
this
some
point,
point,
the thread
200
about
comments.
Yeah.
At this point, the payment thread should be turned into a book and an audiobook on top of that.
Just to explain, we're not advocating for or against its current payment model that they've been putting out there on the dev blog. We just are bringing this up because it's all been said. Everybody's had their say on it. You've got for, you've got against, and we all know all the arguments already. Now everything
And all
is
the
just,
50 shades in between.
yes.
Yeah, you're not going to swing opinions one way or another about the payment model. It's kind of like voting. Once you pick your candidate, it's kind of hard to sway you to a new candidate.
Make Dual Universe great again, please.
If we're going to relate this to politics, then there's this very old adage that I believe holds true here. If we agree with each other, we don't have anything to discuss. If we don't agree, you're an idiot.
So true.
If you, since this was kind of mentioned, if anybody actually wants to get a response from Nova Cork about something, it's really easy to. All you have to do is, ask them on Twitter. They are very open and receptive to people on Twitter.
Twitter and a private message on the forums. I've always gotten every response every time I've sent a message out.
For someone who's never done this, is this true, or are you just pulling my leg here?
No, I mean, that's Nizeltar's job as community manager.
He's very responsive to the community members. Now, that might change in the future because right now we have a pretty low population, so it's easy to manage. But, I mean, I would take advantage of it right now. If you have any questions, shoot a message to him. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if this podcast gets enough views, that might change really quickly.
Well, if you have something legitimate to ask and need an answer, but don't just pester them with every little question.
Yeah, please don't email them asking them to change the subscription model. They also respond to their emails. They've got a whole support system there, and clearly they don't have support staff. So Nizeltar is also responding to those messages. So, anyways, kind of maybe we should get back to the topic at hand here, which is what kind of news came out of Dual Universe this week. Before diving into the AMA thread, anything interesting you guys have dug up? I know Twerk mentioned the Unengine that he had been looking into and what he thought that meant for the game. I don't know, Twerk, do you want to just dive into that a little bit more? That we can kind of discuss what that means?
As far as the code goes on the Unigine and how tessellation works, there is a pretty good reason why free warp won't be in the game at a free scale to every player. That is because if you go faster than the rendering distances and how fast you can load up textures, you might end up seeing popping textures.
Sorry, I'm a bit unexperienced in this field, but wouldn't not rendering it fix the problem entirely?
No, you see, how the Unigine handles textures is really peculiar, should I say, because the engine itself is meant for serious games. Serious games is a terminology used to determine mass-scale simulations for, not exactly for games, but for different projects.
Mm-hmm.
One of those projects is exactly how to create a simulation that is very realistic, which is why I think the devs went with the engine to emulate the relativistic effect of seeing something at thousands of kilometers away while it's not actually there. in other words, how the server tech relays information to you that you don't actually need to really update really quick.
Now, well, going back to the whole free warp idea, is this why you would say that they want to go with a warp bubble effect, so to speak, to avoid the pop-in textures like that?
Yeah, the way they explain it is that they will have a supercarrier ship to deploy a warp bubble to warp an entire fleet to a desired destination without using a probe FTL type of jumping, which is how they explain they are going to create the whole expansion exploration system. If you were to deploy a warp bubble, theoretically speaking, as of a science standpoint, you would not see anything outside. So when a battleship or a supercarrier would deploy a warp bubble for an entire fleet, the server would relay you information you need on the point of arrival, not the in-between systems.
Yeah, so basically not rendering anything in between.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly. I guess it's their way of like figuring out how to not so much do an instance, but it's just their way of loading from one area in the solar system to the next.
Yeah, it's exactly like that as Cybrex explained it, but it's also a way to work around the Unigine limitations, or more accurately, the immense amount of bits that the server has to send. It's pretty important for people to remember that sending information from a server to a client or a player PC or anything costs. Information is also free to mail to another system entirely. So bypassing the whole process of loading all the textures in between, you reduce that cost as well.
Interesting. And it does line up with, what JC has told us about how that works. Said they've yet to test it, with actual players, but they are testing very basic AI systems. And I think that might even be covered in a AMA thread, perhaps. Or maybe I'm remembering the LinkedIn post that JC made recently. He put together a long blog post explaining why, single shard is the way to go, why there can be no other way, why that's so important for the game.
Well, it is the way to go because we now have VDSL internet.
Oh, yeah. Whoa.
You got to remember that the server technology that still exists for many MMOs is based on the WoW archetype of server building, which is meant for 2003 or 4, not for 2016.
Good point. And I don't think that after Dual Universe, No Man's Sky, I think, maybe even Elite Dangerous, but theirs is still Instance, so they didn't really go all the way that they, I guess, could have. Maybe they couldn't have. Of course, they didn't have the technology to just put 10,000 people in one system at one place. But I think after games like this, that it's kind of going to be a requirement going forward to be, groundbreaking MMO. If anything, DU is setting some pretty high standards for what the future should be.
I have to be honest, with other members of the forum on the PMs, I have expressed my contempt, I should say, that if the game was not to be a massive universe, I would be content with a planet sized on the size of Earth and calling the game Second Earth. I would be totally content.
Oh, so
kind of like Second Life?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, but less fairy.
Oh, I was afraid we were going to go there.
Welcome to the internet, people, where everything is dark and scary.
Oh, why don't we dive into the AMA stuff, since kind of 20 minutes into the show now. Who wants to take this AMA question? Who wants to take the first one? Or I'm going to nominate somebody. Hey, Red. Looks like Mastered Red showed up.
Yeah, a bit late here. Sorry about that.
Welcome. You were taking a nap, if I remember. Hope that went okay.
Yep, quite nice and relaxing.
Well, since you're here, why don't you take the first question?
That'll be quite lovely.
Okay.
And fortunately, I am prepared.
Monday, the 25th of July. So, just to recap everybody who is completely new to DU and somehow you've wandered your way into listening to this podcast.
Don't know who you are.
Yeah, Nova Cork is doing. They're doing an AMA response system on the forums. There's a thread that I had started, basically trying to consolidate all the questions that people had for Nova Cork for the AMA, and Nova Cork is picking questions out of there somewhat sequentially, and also ignoring other questions that have probably been answered elsewhere on the forums.
Like mines.
Yes. And basically, they're answering one question a day. They, of course, skipped last Monday's question in favor of just defaulting to the gameplay footage that had come out, since that answered quite a few questions by itself. And so, this week we had 5 questions answered for us, or 5 topics covered. I'm not sure if they've actually answered things or just made more questions for us. But Monday, the 25th of July, Mastered, why don't you take this one? Mastered Red.
Sure thing. The quote goes on to say, in the E3 video, it shows what looks like a pre-made cockpit. When it comes to things like that in ship core engines, will we be linked to pre-made assets, or will there be a possibility to design our own? And it goes on to answer here, it won't be possible to design its own assets. However, we are thinking about a way to let people customize optional logos that could be visible on certain elements, probably at the level of an organization. Besides, in the long run, we hope to be able to produce a wide variety of different styles for each element, so that you can get the possibility to find what looks best for you and your playstyle. But as you can guess, it'll take time and money to do this, so we don't expect a lot of variety at the start.
I was actually really happy with that one.
Yeah, that's quite fascinating.
Well,
You go ahead.
I mean, they make it sound like it's just going to be a stylistic thing, but keep in mind that a lot of the voxel tools they're going to give us to construct things with, we're going to be allowed to shape the voxels or smooth them out. And so if I take a block and put up against another block and use the shaping tool, what I have at the end after I'm done shaping it can look vastly different and interact with its environment vastly in a much more different way than it would be just having 2 blocks stuck together. So that means
I think they use the cellular automata for the water so they can adapt that for a physics grid based on voxels.
Right, but I'm talking about specifically the voxel tools that they've already listed, that, or at least that they want to put in. Whether or not they go all the way through with it remains to be seen, but what they've listed that they want to put in already will change the way I can construct something to such a degree that...
Oh, you mean like structural integrity based on the material?
Right. So if I put on an engine, and since they want the location of the engine to matter, the location of the engine can be great. You can have a huge amount of difference between the locations if the engine is actually shaped differently.
Well, yeah, it's a logical thing to not build a ship out of wood, for example.
Oh, don't break my heart.
True, but what I'm saying is like, so if I
There goes the love boat.
if I make a ship that looks like a box, sure, I can stick an engine onto the side of it. But if I make the ship the shape of, like a dart, I want something more streamlined to attach to it. And therefore, I can attach an engine to a different point than I would, say, an engine that a streamlined engine better to a dart-shaped ship than I would a square-shaped engine, for instance.
Yeah, that's another thing I discussed with another person on the forums. I think it was Archer or Cornflakes, and we discussed if there is an area of pressure when it comes to engines on a specific construct on the server. So you couldn't build an asymmetrical edge engine as arrangement behind the ship and expect it to fly properly.
No, unless you balance it.
Yeah, there are the Lua scripts for that, but it's too much of a hassle.
It's somewhat also covered in the dev blog. I can't remember what post in the dev blog, but they also talk about that, where when you build a ship, you can't just place the engines anywhere and expect to fly. Unless I'm kind of veering off topic here, I think this is what we're talking about.
No, you're still on topic. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. That post that for the Ask Us Anything, it seems like it's just stylistic, but it's actually it covers a lot more. Because of the way I can construct things, I can make something that is wholly unique to me. Somebody brought it up on another post that what would stop somebody from just reverse engineering something? Well, unless they're eyeballing it. If they're going to start deconstructing the blocks that I have constructed, custom made with a shaping tool, they're going to have to be very good to do it. Especially if
I don't want to ruin anyone's party here, should I say, but you could use an exception tool, the trick they use in Landmark, to create holes inside the square surface. This way you could create, like how you create a copy of a key with walks.
Sure, but we're talking about voxels here with smooth edges. We're not talking about Minecraft cubes, which you could just mimic by eyeballing from screenshots.
No, Landmark uses a similar system of voxels to Dual Universe. So I think the same principle of copying something can apply here. It's difficult. It's not something that you can do just on the fly if you don't know what you're doing. But
I don't
possible.
I don't imagine that it's impossible. What I imagine that it's going to be if somebody wants to reverse engineer somebody else's really well-made ship, they're going to be very talented at doing that. If they're capable of doing it, they will be very talented at doing something like that. It's not something that I can just simply do, is what I'm saying.
I think the main concern with this is basically just buying a construct, modifying it a bit, and slapping a name on it and reselling it.
Well, that would work.
Well, in this case, we have another problem, that the Lua scripts cannot be copied, at least as far as my knowledge goes of how they want to implement the interpreter in the server.
Right. For another explanation on that is, I may be able to copy a DPU exactly where you've put it, but what scripts that enable the ship to fly are not exactly something that you can just copy over.
So, while we're on the topic here of assets, from this AMA question, I don't know if anybody noticed on Twitter, they posted a picture of a radar dish, and they said,
yes.
What was it? This is our first radar unit, they said. And they've also mentioned in that thread, how it takes time and money to develop, these new assets. So we probably won't be seeing a giant flood of these in anytime soon, I imagine. I imagine the artists they have are kind of all working together on things like this. I don't know how art teams work.
Oh,
Maybe.
usually. Well, if you don't mind me, usually it depends on what they're doing. If it's like a single voxel, for instance, it'll probably just be one person actually modeling it, adding their own artistic detail, and then maybe another one who adds a couple more features, but the process is pretty minimal. It goes on more of an individual basis than not usually most of the time. Of course, they could develop a completely different work cycle and do it.
I think personally that the more closer we get to the release, that the more we get to see more assets, because currently I think the Nova Crack is concentrating more on developing the game per se and not make assets for it.
Well,
Oh, absolutely.
I think even with the assets they have in the game, I mean, we've seen the gameplay footage, so even with the limited amount of assets they have, they still have done quite a bit. And I think it'd still be fun to play in that kind of environment.
To be fairly honest, I would be really happy if they could just buy pre-made 3D meshes online instead of wasting time and manpower on creating them themselves for the alpha or the beta.
Yeah, well, you saw how that turned out. What was it like the week after E3?
Oh gosh,
Is
that.
it
Yeah, that whole Turbo Squid thing, yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
We've managed to avoid that topic for 5 weeks now.
Yeah,
But
Bless
it-
thee, bless thee.
More on the
Yeah,
topic of
but-
this radar unit here. They said that wires and electric wires are gonna be the things that transfer power throughout a ship from a power supply system. If you look at the radar dish, I don't know what your opinions are, but that kind of looks like two power ports, two plugs. I wonder how big it is. I'd like to see a person standing next to that. Like, is a person's head going to be where the light is, or is a person's head like way down there at the base of it?
yeah. There's nothing really to measure the scale yet.
I think it's more a light-based radar dish. That these things are lenses for lasers.
No, I don't think the radar they posted on Twitter is an array for targeting lasers. I think it's more like scanning for different materials around the ground and or around the system.
I was going to say it looks more like a what's the word for it? Sensors for just what he basically said. But I don't. We have seen. I remember in the E3 video there was a one of the shots you could see a radar dish. If anybody remembers that, it was pretty
Yes.
large. I think this one is on the smaller scale.
So this would be
I
something
think
you
it
stick
looks
on
like
your
a
ship.
dome.
Yeah.
I think it just looks like a dome. You could say that those panels could do anything right now.
I wonder if it animates. Is it animated? Does it spin? That'd be pretty cool. I imagine it doesn't spin.
Ooh.
Ooh, animations.
Anyways, moving on. I think we kind of veered off topic enough. Who wants to take the next AMA question for Tuesday? Don't all speak up at once. Wardian?
I'll take it since Xander's not here.
All right, Wardian. Why don't you do us the honors here?
All right, question number 19. The quote is, "I am thrilled with the idea of player-made content, but I also don't want to see many horrendously ugly / joke constructs designs, silly ship organization names, or anything that breaks the immersion of being in a sci-fi universe. Does the dev team have any ideas about how to make the game mechanics favor better aesthetics?" And Nizeltar's reply was, "Yes, we've been thinking a lot about this question, as it is a fundamental challenge to balance the quality and user experience in the game. We cannot censor every possible construction in the game ourselves. It would be too costly and wouldn't make sense in a player-driven emergent game. So we definitely want to give freedom for anyone to build anything, and without a doubt, all sorts of various things will be made. There are, however, two key factors that will help increase the quality of what is created. Number one, building a construct, and especially mass-producing a construct, is a costly activity. So the number of copies you'll find for any given construct will depend on the efforts the builder is willing to make. It has to be, quote-unquote, worth it. Number two, the amount of copies of any given construct you will see in the game will, in most cases, directly depend on its success as a product on the in-game markets. Any ship that sells in quantities will, by definition, be something that the players like and buy in-game. Well, if you assume the majority of players have bad taste, you could get bad taste ships proliferating, but after all, if everybody likes it, it's not bad taste anymore. Vox populi, vox dei, in parentheses for them. Most people will like to fly in kick-ass ships, for sure, and not ugly, bad-designed shoe-like potatoes. So following this reasoning, we can hope that even if jokes / ugly experiments will exist, there's no way to avoid it, they will remain in the minority because of costs and market selections. Finally, a last point. As an organization owning territories, you will be able to control quite precisely who and what people are allowed to build on your territory. This should ensure that certain areas are at least at least, are developed according to some rational policy and not randomly. In other words, we would delegate the censorship job to the players themselves. This overall quality control problem is a very complex matter, however, and we don't pretend to have solved all possible issues. So we are very much interested in the feedback and ideas of the community about it.
Whew,
You
that
know,
was long.
Out of that entire answer that he did, it's that last part that really stands out to me. That they're basically letting us as the players control in what sector of space, what the style is, what the standard is, which is pretty impressive.
It also makes sense
True.
because there's some obscene shapes that one could imagine being made. I think they call it time to penis in game development and sandbox development. You can look it up in Urban Dictionary, but it's basically all game developers who make sandbox games have to, or I don't know if they have to, or if it's just something that they work out. But there's a given amount of time before players will come together or by themselves to create something obscene or anything along those lines. But
Usually
in Dual
within 2
Universe,
weeks.
I mean, imagine someone makes something obscene. I'm like listening through my head what I can and what I shouldn't say on the show. But if they make an obscene body part and they expect it to be sold as a ship or something mass reproduced, there's also the engineering aspect. Like it might not fly that well.
Well, the other thing that I want to point out is being able to limit or control how things are crafted and built in your territory can really backfire on somebody who decides, I want all ships to look like this. In particular, because many ship designs will work in a certain way. Like they brought up, most people will want to fly in a kick-ass ship. Well, sure, I'm sure that after a while people will be able to design some really kick-ass ships, but how well will you be able to repair it? How well will it if I require certain skills to be able to fix something in the game with my in-game character, and you build a ship that requires skill levels that aren't the norm, or most people that don't have, and you decide to sell it as an explorer class ship, how many explorers are going to buy it if they can't fix it?
Yeah, there's a lot of things to factor in between cost,
Right.
Cost to maintain. Actually, I think that's one of the biggest parts that to any ship that's going to be on the market is it may look, like you said, it may look cool, but what's it going to take to maintain that ship? If you can't maintain it, then where are you going to get it? You kind of just, it's a paperweight. So I think that's really going to come in heavily into the supply and demand of ships.
I can fully see a lot of mass-produced ships that get sold really well being not top of the line at all. They're built like rocks and bricks or whatever. Why? Because you can fix it easy.
Trust and rust.
Yes, very much so.
Well, sure we can hit up that question later as well. Who wants to take the next question for Wednesday of this week? Darth, Shadow Lord. I see you just joined. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Introduce how?
Well, hi, I'm Darth, Shadow Lord Alpha.
Are you sure you're Darth?
I like.
Pretty sure I'm Darth, not you, Yema.
I'm Darth, Shadow Lord Alpha. I'll do your introduction. I like
Oh, okay.
long walks on the beach. I like furry animals. I really like cats. I have a house full of cats. I'm going in the right direction here?
I don't think I have a house full of Neos, but besides that, sure.
No Second Life players in your house. Anyways, since you just joined us, how about you take this next AMA question? I don't know if you've done one yet.
Wednesdays, right?
Wednesdays, yeah.
So it's in the interview with MMORPG, you guys described how the single shard will split the server spatially based on the number of players, and I'm guessing the size and level of detail of structures. I would like to know how this would affect syncing between those servers when in dense player populations, even the most basic interactions can end up running on more than one server. If I fall in the middle of a shopping mall, where each floor has enough players to count for its own servers, would I end up freezing every few meters? And then their answer is basically it's just done transparently. So
Oh, you
you wouldn't
cheater.
even notice it.
Oh.
No, you gotta read.
I had to read all of the last one.
Fine,
You
I'll
gotta
read it.
all of this.
The server synchronization is done transparently in the cluster side. You as a client will not see any change. There might be a bit of a delay internally for the different actors to synchronize within the cluster, but it will most likely be unnoticeable by the user, as the typical internet latency.
I think we just
Good
lost him.
job.
Speaking of internet latency,
Well
Right.
done. You're trying to get out of this more than one way.
Yeah, that was weird. I didn't actually. Whatever. Where was I when I dropped or whatever?
latency.
Will always be beyond the kind of latency they didn't actually grammar check this at all. In a high performance cluster, you as the player get regular updates about what is going on around you. Not matter which physical server doesn't matter which physical servers these updates are coming from. As you fall in the shopping mall, your avatar will register and deregister from several zones several times, and people subscribe to these zones, the people living on each floor, will get a notification of your passage. Well, that's the theory and what we get from our first testing scenarios.
Perhaps something was lost in translation.
Hmm. I gotta
That or
read
the grammar is just a little weird.
Yeah, I gotta read it real
Maybe.
quick.
As you fall in the shopping mall, I guess
Basically,
travel?
as you're jumping down the center of the mall for whatever reason and going really
Okay.
quickly from floor to floor, it's registering you from each of those floors server and then sending the event to everyone on that server. And then as you fall out of it, it's telling everyone that you're still moving and yada, yada, yada.
So basically,
Well.
it's you just traveling as you're traveling. You're going through different server nodes, and the server nodes are
Yeah.
all speaking with each other. That's what it's saying.
Well, they're all speaking with the clients and you're speaking to
Right.
the different server nodes.
Hmm.
I think that we need a little bit to think about that one. But in the meantime, Cybrix, do you want to take the next question here for Thursday?
Yeah, I got it.
Well,
So,
I was just going to say quickly about the servers. The guy was asking if you would be lagging while you're transiting through all like these 6 different layers, or however many it is, and it's basically that you won't experience lag.
Yeah, because if you look at something like Second Life, you would know that crossing sim borders is a bit of a nightmare in any
Well, it's
vehicle, really.
Yeah, crossing the border, but you're already registered in that server as you approach it. So it wouldn't matter because you're both registered in the current one and the next one. So it's like the lag for when you're crossing the border is happening while you're free of lag in the other server so that you're not experiencing it.
that said, though, while you're not experiencing lag, other players on a different server node that are looking at you and the other server node will see a delayed action on their end because it's still communicating with them.
Well, no, I doubt that because they'd be communicating with several other servers, so they're going to take the server that doesn't have the lag for your stuff.
I feel like I read somewhere where there was a delay involved.
I
There's
think
always delay
what-
involved, but it's usually less than a half a second.
I think what he was trying to get at is that if you're seeing something several servers away, it's going to be delayed no matter how far it is.
Well, you're communicating several servers away too. So the server you're in is faster, and I think the way they're going to do it is you're registered in one server basically, and that server you get updates really quickly. There's servers around you, and you're registered in those servers, but because that's not your primary server, you're going to get less updates from those servers, so everything will be a bit more jumpy. And it just keeps getting a little bit more jumpy as it goes farther away.
Right.
So the servers don't have to send you as much information.
Yes, and it was mentioned in an interview with, I think, one of the devs, or it might have been J.C. Bailey, that there would be delay, of course. But it was mentioned that you get less updates, as said, and so a player that was maybe 2 miles from you, or 3 kilometers, for example, would actually see you in the past. And so I think that's kind of what you were referring to, right? Or it might have been what you were remembering.
Guys, that's exactly what I meant, that the unit gene can emulate the relativistic effects. You can see something that is out there 7 kilometers away or 7,000 kilometers away, but it's an image of the past, and the engine emulates that to you as a player.
It actually doesn't need to be part of the past. It can be, I guess, on the client side. But it's probably going to be wrong, yes.
For the purpose of the server tech, yes, it's an event that happened in the past, and you get updates of it later on.
Well, I think that explains as much as we know right now. Who was going to read that next AMA, Yama?
I was going to get it.
Yep, Cybrex.
All right, number 21. Can a ship in a large battle shoot a missile at someone in another server? What about pathfinding for NPCs? Large concentration of player characters. How far are you in developing the server architecture to support this? How far have you managed to push and stress test the system? This question kind of goes back to what we were just discussing. So his answer was, Zaltar, rather, there are no NPCs in the alpha version of the game, and if or when they are made, they will have very simple AI movements to start with. Pathfinding would be an interesting problem in the dynamic voxel world. But we have not worked on that yet. As for missiles, they will most likely have no physical reality beyond the visual effects that will be on the client side only. The way combat will work will be through the basic lock plus fire mechanism, which we've been discussing as the active lock on. Where the actual impact is probabilistic. I'm not even going to say that word. Probably calculated based on various parameters such as skills, distance, armor, etc. As for the server technology to handle lots of players, this is what we call our continuous single shard technology. It is developed and works in testing scenarios around 10,000 players in the same area. We need to do a lot of live testing still, but the fundamentals, such as the math and theory, are still in place. This technology is a key element of Dual Universe. We believe that the fact that everybody is in the same world at the same time will massively and positively influence the type of gameplay you will see in the game. In fact, this is the central value proposition of Dual Universe. So this kind of goes back to what was mentioned about the patent. This is the basis for their server technology that Twerk Motor went over.
Yeah, well, if my assessment is correct, it took J.C. Bail about 7 or 8 years to perfect the server technology as a prototype and then use it for the game's purposes.
I think I'm going to call their bluff on this one, because I don't think they have tested this with 10,000 players. I think they tested it with 10,000 bots, but that's not really the same as 10,000 players.
No, that's definitely not the same.
Well, let me explain. When a server spawns an NPC, it registers as a client for all the purposes of the physical entity on the server. So, if they spawned 10,000 NPCs on a server and tested it out, it means that the server blade can handle probably 5,000 players on a single, on a particular space. The point of the 10,000.
Yeah, and my concern is
if they moved or not.
My concern is the lag that players would otherwise experience. You have players all over the world.
Well, see, you only need one main player to do or to test the lag. You can't have a great connection now is the problem. So if you have 10,000 NPCs specifically designed to be like perfect clients and fake the server into moving, they're actually going to cause more problems for the server than 10,000 clients would. So if you do it a certain way, you can actually make it so that you can test 10,000 clients with one person. But yeah, you really should have a ton of live people because internet connections, all that stuff plays a part.
And not to mention people are random.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what
You
bot
can make a random
tests
number.
fail to take into account is the experience degradation when 10,000 players are being tested for each individual.
Yeah. That's
But
why you have to
that's
have at least one real person in there.
yep. It's just really a test to see more of what server-side tech can handle than any single player or person can handle with their computer and as such. One of the reasons why you got beta testers.
I know I've made a server with 10,000 bots and it was hilarious. Everything moved in slow motion.
Well,
Well,
I've always.
hopefully,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, hopefully, because not trying to get too off topic here, but for Gamescom this year, which is coming up on here in the next month, here in August, NovaCorp does have a booth there, and we believe they are doing a reveal there. It'd be based on the E3 presentation and what's come after that, and what they have been telling us in the AMAs is that we're expecting that they're going to be doing a live demonstration of what we were just talking about with the number of people that are going to be at a different server. How they're going to go about that, I don't know, but that's kind of what's in the air right now. So maybe we'll see something. I don't know.
I'm just going to reserve judgment on the whole developed and works in testing scenarios until they actually have 10,000 people, because there is a huge difference. Yes, I can replicate a lot of things, but you cannot do the things that human players do. Like what happens to the server if 500 people randomly disconnect?
See, you can simulate all that though, because the server doesn't know the difference between a human and a client, or a human and a bot. That's why bots work so well most of the time.
Well, what I'm saying is, yes, you could simulate it, but only if you thought of it.
Yep. That's one of the reasons why there are a million people thinking of ideas every day at least. It's better to have a million people thinking of ideas every day than just one. Because the randomness of a million people is much greater than the randomness of just a couple hundred. Or as such.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to in beta testing. Beta testers discover things like that because they do the things that the developers never would have thought of doing.
Well, I think this all boils down to please give us alpha right now.
Let us do this.
Please, yes.
Give us your game so we can break it already.
Give us the alpha or pre-alpha you showed the XP gamers. We'll be fine with that.
Yep, that'll be fine.
Anyways, moving on. Who wants to cover the last question from this week?
Yeah.
Darius.
All right.
Yo.
Darius Sanguna.
Okay. Q&A question 22. Will the mentioned Stargates function as point-to-point or more like a dial system from the trope naming show movie? Answer to that. Stargates will be part of a player-made network of nodes. Given a node is able to let ships jump to any node that is within its maximal range, which depends on the level of the Stargate. Effectively, this draws a map to where you can go in the galaxy. But unlike most other games, the map is not static and not predefined. Players are creating the Stargates, and players can also destroy the Stargates, nearly blocking routes or even isolating some part of the universe for some time in the process. Building a Stargate will involve sending a proxy probe to the desired new Stargate position. The probe will travel at FTL speed, but will still need weeks to reach distant destinations. Once deployed, the probe will allow for just one jump that you can use to send the necessary material and personnel to start building the effective Stargate and activate it.
So this one wasn't that long, but I thought it explained a lot and was really enjoyable. Particularly, I was interested in where it says the level of Stargates, as if there might be some depth to what kind of Stargate you build.
See, I would hope that more means just pump huge amounts of power into it, and that makes it go farther. But
Well, it could be an interesting mechanic to see. I only have a level 2 Stargate, so it can only go this far. We'll see. That's one of those things I think that can actually change over time, or they'll sit there and look at it and go, you know what, this isn't going to work out the way we thought it was going to work.
Well, what if it's dictated by skill level? What if the people who can design those blueprints have to like train for 180 days to be able to build the maximum size skill thing, or Stargate?
Think of how
There's
Then
how
I'll train
valuable
for
your
108 days.
I mean, to do that in Eve, to build a Titan in Eve, not only do you have to train the whole time, but you also have to wait. I don't know how long it takes to build one in Eve nowadays. They cost a
I
lot.
don't remember. Yeah.
a
I
lot
get what you're
longer
saying.
than most people think, considering you have to hide the resources that you've gathered for it.
Maybe I have not seen something in the answer, but to me sounds like the Stargates will be a part of one network, and that we not have several networks for different organizations.
I think you will be able to set access to your Stargate, would you not?
I think that has been mentioned before, is that you can have your own private setup.
see, I think it's gonna work kind of like the Stargates in SG1, where you can force the Stargate. Well, technically, you can force them closed, like bury them or make them
Yeah.
inaccessible,
Mhm.
and that'll take it off the network. So if you have a Stargate, it can access any other one of your Stargates or a public Stargate. But I don't think anyone else can access your Stargate unless you give them permission. or
I don't think
something
that's
like
how
that.
it's going to work. I think the Stargates are going to be point to point, and that's it. Mainly because of the way that the probe system works, like sending out a probe
They
and then
literally
jumping
just
to
said
it.
it was part of a network, so
Well, the network can be many things. I mean, like EVE Online has jump gate networks, but that doesn't mean that each gate can go to several places.
Well,
true.
It says right there that a given node is able to let ships jump to any node that is within its
Exactly.
maximal range of the gate. So, and then with the powers and the tags, you might be able to create your own private system,
Okay.
or at least block it off from the public.
I was
All
not
I
paying
know is
attention.
all I know is I can now see people building a Stargate and having an ambush waiting at the end of it.
So you mean our giant minefields?
Giant
Gate
minefields.
camps.
Loot.
Gate camps.
You jump into the system and there's a giant wall in front of you.
Or like the actual Stargate, and they've just got like a titanium thing where you run into and die instantly.
Yes, that would suck, I think, in overall. I mean, it seems like a cool idea. I think that would suck in overall game turns. Oh, shit. I jumped through this guy, and this guy decided to troll me by shutting his iris. But,
Or, oh man, somebody told me there was some rare material here, and then they turn off the Stargate, and now I'm stuck in this system in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, I can see this. I can see the restrictions and the tags that you're able to put on a Stargate are going to be somewhat more limited than
I would hope so.
other systems.
I would definitely
Oh.
hope so. Because the possibility of grief with that kind of system it's a griefer's dream. Get a bunch of people in solar system and then just cut them off. Like, sorry
Yeah.
guys, you're on your own.
And that's also kind of.
I mean, I don't consider myself a griefer, but I still think that'd be pretty hilarious. Not to happen to
Of
me.
course it would.
Just leave them there for a few days. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Although that would be, they proposed with, one of the art token system or whatever they are going to name it, if they do even implement it, that it would take maybe a couple days to put it up and a couple days to take it down, maybe a week or so. So you could, in theory, have something similar with a Stargate. Maybe it take, 4 or 5 days for it to turn it off, and people in that area might be notified about it, to prevent trapping.
That also gave me an idea when you just
Let's see
mentioned
what
that,
happens when I blow it up. Then
Well, then, too bad.
What about hacking a Stargate? Whether you have permission or not, you can hack it and gain permission.
That would be problematic in some areas.
I think the limiting factor is going to be that these things are going to take over 24 hours of time to update.
Yeah, that would be optimal. If it takes over 24 hours of time just to do something with the Stargate, that's going to mean less people are going to want to do it. And it's going to allow some opportunity to maybe correct a course that you might be heading to.
But see, again, if we can damage stuff, then what's to stop me from blowing it up then? If
Absolutely
it
nothing.
takes 24 hours, I could just blow up a Stargate instead of shutting it off.
Well,
Probably they will be too durable to destroy just so simply.
What if it's by Stargate?
I mean, it just comes down to, man, I fully believe you'll be able to blow up Stargates, but it just kind of comes down to, we don't know what the resource cost is going to be for them, and if it's even going to be feasible to destroy it, you know?
as
I guess
well.
it just depends on what your needs are at the time.
As well, you can think of the idea of Stargates. For instance, it could be black holes that are creating Stargates, bending space and time.
Pretty sure they said based on wormholes, but I don't know.
Yes, it's based on wormholes. So maybe even if you destroy it, the Stargate might last for a little while. Or the wormhole, whatever mechanic they're thinking about and using.
A decay effect.
Yes, a decay effect, essentially. Instead of just, bam, you're stuck here. Goodbye. I mean, it makes sense that if you put a ton of energy into, a wormhole, that it would take a while for it to use up. And maybe it gets less and less stable, maybe it shrinks. Who knows? It might just decay after a long time.
Yeah, I think we're too early into this game to really discuss matters on how we can grieve people with a system that's not even in place yet.
Oh no, people will still
With
think about it.
resurrection nodes.
We're already thinking about it.
Personally, I'm really in favor of the wormhole idea. Like, this would be a factor of limiting the change of destroying a Stargate to 24 hours as well.
Well, all I know is I would be very upset if I went through a Stargate, went to go explore a planet, logged off for the day, and then came back and went, how the hell am I going to get out of here now? Some jackass blew up the Stargate.
Yeah, that would be quite frustrating.
It would also be a insane way to battle. I mean, it's a great battle tactic. Like, I can imagine the benefits of Eve, how it would change the dynamics of how giant battles happen if there was the ability to shut down one of the exit Stargates. I mean, sometimes in Eve, the entire tide of a battle could be determined on who controls the Stargate at any given point in time.
It's really going to come down to, at least in this one, it's going to come down to destroying Stargates or creating your own choke points to make them where you want to make them go. So there's a lot of strategic value to be had with the Stargates.
Oh no, my Stargate just got shut off. I no longer have reinforcements or supplies. Makes sense.
It can also be used as defensive tactic. You got a message that your home system will be attacked, and you just blow up the Stargate, and you'll be fine.
Or if you have maybe, let's not say a whole planetary city or something like that, but maybe an outpost, and you find out that, oh no, there's an invading force coming. Well, better just hop in the Stargate and get back to the main city. Cut the Stargate, there you go. You save some resources and the crew.
I think there is a lot of speculation that we could go into here.
Oh yeah, but speculation is the best part of the show.
Yep, it's half of the show most of the time.
I'm just thinking back on this, as far as Stargates go, is there going to be a mass thing? As far as how big you can actually send something through. And depending on the size of the Stargate, they're going to be different sizes.
And power, and maybe the type of Stargate.
Is it actually going to require you to go into the Stargate, or is it something where if you're at a certain distance of it, it just kind of transitions you to another area? So, physical size might not actually matter.
Well,
like weight would matter, but not necessarily width.
Going by the wormholes, you have to go through the wormhole to get anywhere. It's not just an area of effect, but
it is an area of effect, just a rather large one.
I know what you mean. I mean, I guess what it comes down to is just what the Stargate is, this wormhole that you have made, and what kind of power it's outputting to make this wormhole is how strong is that wormhole able to send a ship through. Maybe doing our Death Stars is completely feasible, but you may not get it through through a Stargate. You may have to take the long trip.
Might take a while to get to any of the stars to rain death upon.
Or you might have to do something like in SG1, build a supergate.
Yep, and then, it might also take some people and possibly resources to maintain each Stargate as well. For
Here's
instance,
a fun question. What happens if you send an active Stargate through a bigger Stargate?
As long as it's not active, nothing.
What will they look like?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the point.
are they actually going to look like stargates, like giant gates otherwise? Or since they're kind of based more on wormholes, I would like to see them more as spherical objects like an interstellar.
Hmm.
It would help if we knew where they're getting their inspiration from.
Yes.
Probably online would be a good guess.
Yeah, they gave us a few of their inspiration points, but I don't remember any of those things having wormholes. Does Battlestar Galactica have wormholes? I never watched it.
No, they have FTL.
They use jump drives.
yeah. And actually one of their inspirations, faster than light, and you can actually see that quite a bit. For instance, FTL nodes, sending crew to repair a section of their ship. They've actually meant some stuff that you could think about in that game quite a bit.
I think Dual Universe is just going to be the ultimate mismatch of every nerd's fantasy you can imagine.
Oh yeah, that's been apparent from the start.
And if they do it right, it will be amazing.
Yes. So they better get it right. We're holding them to it. And
Or
if they don't get it right, we're holding them to ransom.
Whoa, I think we're kind of approaching the end of the show here. Somewhat.
Let's at least throw out our end of show shout out, and then anyone who wants to hang around talking, we can just carry on that way.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yes, and I will be hanging out. Master Redstone, leader of the DOA, signing off.
Wardian?
This is Wardian 2000, resident space wizard. Have a nice day, everybody.
Mega? Darth? Darius?
Darius Sanguinatus, leader and founder of the Terran Union, signing out.
Cybrex?
Space pirates rule. All your booty belongs to me, and have a good day.
Good Captain Torque Motor?
I am a panda and I'm out.
Mega? Darth? Either of you there?
Shy away
Yeah.
from the corporate. Join the free miners today.